it works. I am gonna share my screen, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So when we talk about voter contact methods, what is the most effective way to reach voters? What moves voters to, especially in our case, get out to vote in a nonpartisan way? I have this graph. I'm going to share my screen. So if you can see here, effectiveness of voter mobilization strategies. This is the percentage. So door-to-door canvassing increased voter turnout by 4.3%. The next effective voter mobilization strategy was volunteer phone calls, which is when you have a real person on the phone talking to another person on the phone. The next one is social pressure mailers. They're very specific, very targeted mailers, specifically about getting out to vote. I am going to vote because X. Yeah. Or, sorry, social pressure mailers are more about, getting out to vote, one thing, and also make people think that people around them are also voting. So if you send a mailer like, you're the only one on this street who's not registered to vote, that person usually 2.3% of the time go out to vote. Commercial phone banks, which are big robocalls that is not people, is 0.8%. Pre-recorded phone calls 0.1%. Like if a candidate pre-records a message and calls people, that's 0.1%. And then nonpartisan mailers 0.05%. So what we should take away from this is anytime you can have a conversation, a dialogue where someone can talk back to you, that is a more effective voter mobilization strategy. And I got this, I'm sorry, from Green and Gerber in 2015. Their book, I believe it's Get Out the Vote is the name of the book. Great read for people interested in voter mobilization. They talk all about, they've done field studies. They showed elections. This actually is probably the older one. There was one released right before the 2020 election. I think it's the 3rd edition. Same type of stuff. They found the same thing. On the ground canvassing, volunteer phone calls. So if we're talking text banking will fall in between volunteer phone calls and social pressure mailers, because again, there's a type of conversation there. Even though you're sending out a text message, the person can respond to you. Anytime you're out in the community and doing visibility work or doing, I'm trying to think of any type of, let's say you go to a parade and register voters at a parade or something along those lines. It's the face-to-face contact or the ear-to-ear or mouth-to-ear, whatever you want to call it, conversation that really moves the effectiveness of voter mobilization strategies. So that's why at UU The Vote, we're focusing more in this next phase of the campaign, this last phase of the campaign, in trying to do way more phone banking. And then toward the end, I'm going to be working with the New Pennsylvania Project for the last 4 days of the election, last week of the election, to do door-to-door canvassing for the last week of the campaign up until Election Day. So yes, that is the effectiveness of different voter mobilization techniques. Want to make sure there's not anything I'm forgetting to tell you. While I look in my notes, was there any questions so far?
Yes. Do you want us to raise electronically or hand or chat?
Electronically puts you on the top of the screen, so that's good.
Should I do that right now? Just see if I can do that.
It's under reactions.
Oh yeah, no, I got it. But may I ask a question? Therefore, yeah. Thank you so much. I loved that graph, and you're showing like the lower end of things that really are expensive and not so effective.
Right.
And I also love hearing that you really want to increase the amount of phone banking that's done. we found both phone banking and text banking to be so much better. And one of the things I wanted to say about phone banking is that I've worked a lot with a group called Reclaim Our Vote, which has also worked with UUA. I see some shaking yeses of heads. And 2 years ago, I guess, at General Assembly, you were using a dialer to go through a lot of names at once. And we have found that using a more, well, it's not manual, but not using a dialer, but using something that allows you to leave messages actually, and they're usually 7 times more answering machine messages than humans you get to talk with. But our data says that they are just as effective at GOTV. That blew my mind. And I know you've switched to a lot of non-dialer stuff right now, but I was so grateful to hear about that data, because it as a phone banker, we think, gee, I didn't even talk to a human. The fact that it really has that effect was fantastic. So I love hearing that you're doing more and more of that. And also in text banking, I'm so glad also to hear you find that people are one-to-one. And a lot of my interactions have been, I still feel as though I know those people at the end of it. And that stunned me. I didn't know that at all. So I love you're looking at the whole panoply and teaching us about those numbers. I had never seen those.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I remember I found my note. The last thing I want to talk about is when we are having conversations and we're using language. This is more on the staff writing the scripts. But if you are doing your own individual outreach, doing it with your group, what pushes voters a little bit more up to get out the vote is actually asking for a commitment. This commitment coincides with the influence principle of consistency. Humans have a natural drive to be consistent with prior statements and commitments, particularly if those statements and commitments are made in public. Gerber and Green found the message really doesn't matter as long as citizens can be counted on to vote and provide them with the location of their polling place. So again, how we say it really doesn't matter, but if you can get people to commit in public, get people to commit on the phone, get people to commit at the door, get people to commit at an event to vote, and you tell them their polling place, like, can you commit to vote on Tuesday at 1 o'clock at your polling place? People remember that, especially when we follow up with a text message, follow up with even a letter and say, you told me that you were going to vote, go do that. And that raises it, considerable percentage points. I believe it's about 2% of people who go out. And those might not sound like big percentage points, but a field margin is about 4 to 8%. We see now across the country that some of these elections are decided by 2% elections, 2% of the vote, thousands of votes, maybe no more than 5,000 votes are choosing sometimes senators, sometimes presidents. So any margin that we can get up, whether that be door knocking, whether that be phone banking, whether that be texting, whether that be just being outside, talking to people about voting, is going to help. Anytime we can raise those margins is going to help, because these elections are so close and we don't want to be out organized by the other side or by people who are anti-democracy. So that's all I got. Those are my notes. Go ahead, Teresa. I saw your hand.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for the information. I was just curious about the difference between social pressure mailers and nonpartisan mailers.
That's a great point. So I'm actually going to double check that, because I know that, I'm going to just look it up really quickly. So social pressure, sorry, I mixed it up. Social pressure is more about not a candidate, but a policy issue that people care about.
Got it.
So I'm going to read it. Let me go down. Studies have shown that people who report feeling a greater sense of civic duty are also more likely to report, but hold on, I missed it. Yeah, another proposal is that the desire to adhere to social norms may also affect voting behavior, especially if the voter perceives a strong social pressure to vote. And again, this was also found in Gerber and Green's book, Get Out the Vote. I'm just reading snippets of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Mary, I think your hand is up.
Wondering where would postcards like the Reclaim Our Vote postcards that go out, where would that fit in your chart?
Postcards, I believe, I'm actually gonna look and see. I would put postcards down here with nonpartisan mailers. Because they are nonpartisan, obviously, the voter context that we're doing. We actually find that the larger the election, the larger the campaign, the less, and by election, I mean something as big as president, something as big as Senate, something as big as Congress. Even maybe Congress is a little smaller, but the bigger the election that in that way, the less effective postcarding is. Postcarding is way more effective for like local candidates, Board of Education candidates. But when you're sending postcards, yeah, it's just not as effective because again, it's not a conversation. The person getting the postcard can't talk back, but there is a place for it. It still moves turnout, even if it is half a percentage point. And we need that half a percentage point. It also is something small that people can keep. If it has like the date of the election on it, or if it has like usually the date of the election or something like that, they might put it on their fridge. It might be on their counter. It's just good to have nearby. So I wouldn't throw away postcarding at all because I think there is a place for it. Like I said, we need all the percentage points that we can get. So even that 0.5% of a point is still points. And I would keep doing postcarding, but if there is an option to do more dialogue-based conversations, I would try to do that. Elsa.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I keep killing my video because I lose Wi-Fi. Thank you for calling on me again. I do work with or volunteer with Reclaim Our Vote. And interestingly, I think postcards are the least effective of any of these things, although I didn't know a lot of your data there. But we send them to people of color whom the big parties do not send anything to. And they often are people who've been taken off the voting rolls and don't even know they have been. They never get those big mailers. They never get a phone call. And we have heard from people, well, thank you for calling, or and thank you for the information. But that's on a phone call. The amazing thing, we have the data for how effective postcards have been. We have seen 25 to 35% increases in the voter base in those often rural counties where nothing else is going on. And we sometimes do follow-up calls to say, well, what else did you get? And they say, that's the only thing that I got. So if you're looking for a group that's underserved, you really can have impact. And Jajan, I think when, I think of what my own mailbox brings in, and it just goes immediately into the round file before I walk in the door. Choosing your audience, I think, is key for all of this. But then we also do some of it in more populous areas, but we always follow up with a phone bank. And first of all, we say, your name's been taken off. Here's where to check, and here's where to re-sign up. And or we say, if your name hasn't been taken off, it's please do early voting. This is where your voting center is. If you send it on a card, they can keep that. And we've also found that they, even voicemails on a phone or a card, they save it for the other people in their family. When friends come over, they can show it to them. Exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But don't just do it blindly to everybody. I so agree there.
Very true. Very true. Great point. Great point. Again, that's what I'm saying. Don't get rid of postcards. There's still a place for it. Before I answer the last two questions, I did find the point in the lessons about mailers that I wanted to read, like the right sentence and not the wrong sentence. I feel like I left that answer a little confused last time. So what social pressure mailers are. One was a reminder that appeal to voters' sense of civic duty, increased turnout among registered voters by 1.8 percentage points, alerting individuals to the fact that they were being studied in this study, increased turnout by 2.5%. Mailing a household's own voting record resulted in a 4.9 percentage point increase, and listing neighbors' voting records resulted in an 8.1% increase in turnout among registered voters. Incredible numbers. I have never seen a mailer like that, but I think it would work if someone mailed me my voting record and say, "Hey, you voted in every election except for this one. Why aren't you voting?" I would say, "Well, I guess I should go vote. They got an eye on me." So that's what social pressure is. Sorry about the confused answer earlier. I couldn't find the proper sentence, but that's it right there.
Examples helped a lot, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah. Tony, do you have a question?
Yes, thinking about that social pressure category. So if you were to write a postcard or letter to a voter and include a message about, I'm thinking of this citizenship issue that, duties of a citizen. So if you say something like, well, the reason I vote and I encourage you to vote is because very important for us to protect and defend our democracy today, what with all the threats, some wording like that, because I understand right now, based on polls, the dangers to our democracy are top of mind for voters today.
Sure.
So if you were to write a postcard like that, I assume it would be more effective than just a generic postcard, because it does fit that social pressure category, does it not?
I would think so. But I would double check that with the person you're writing postcards with, because, and this is unfortunate, but some people might see that language as divisive. And I don't agree that it is, but writing postcards, they try to stay as non-divisive as possible, even if it's perceived divisiveness and not actually divisiveness.
Right.
But I'm with you. If I could write a postcard and say that I'm voting because I care about the threat to democracy and that is on the ballot this year, that's what I would write, because that's the truth. There is threats to democracy on the ballot all over the country, and that's why we should get out to vote.
Good.
Thank you. Fred.
Yeah, I just had a quick observation for you. It's one of the things you kind of put up, what's the most effective, but effectiveness is also how many contacts you can make, right? So I think of text banking as being overall, you can send out thousands of texts in a short time. Is that
Right.
overall the most effective, actually?
Yeah. So somebody asked me to share that piece of data right here. I'm going to highlight it. That's what I just read about social pressure mailers. But yes, Fred, you're absolutely right. Driving up your effectiveness is how many voters you speak to, because there's a difference between speaking to 100 voters and 10,000 voters. 100 voters, 2% is 2 voters. 10,000 voters, that's way more. So with text message, I can see like people can get frustrated because it feels like it's not helping. But with those and with dialers, you are reaching so many people in such a short amount of time. And you want to get your message out there as far and wide as you can. You want to make sure that you can get as many, especially with text messaging. I think texting at get out the vote time, get out the vote season is so important, because it tells people where they can get information on where they vote, how to get their mail-in ballot, things of that nature. And you want to get that information to as many people as possible to drive up your effectiveness. So you're 100% right. The more people that you talk to, the more effective your numbers. I can't see hands while I have my screen share. Fred, can you see who else has a hand up?
I think Teresa does. I'm not sure. We need to wrap it up though pretty quickly.
Okay, let's make this the last question.
I just wanted to follow up on what Tony was saying. The organization Vote Forward, they do letter writing in a number of different states, and I'm actually interested in Pennsylvania, so I'm doing that for them now. They actually have a form letter, and there's a space there where they want you to tell prospective voters why you're voting. So they do offer you that opportunity. So Tony, if that's what you're interested in, go look at Vote Forward. and you can do it pretty easily and pretty quickly.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for this time.
Good, Jason. Very
It
interesting.
was really glad to be here. So I will stop hogging up all your time, turn the meeting back over to Fred. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you. I want to quickly go through what we're going to be sharing with you, the partners list and the activities list. Let me show it to you. So these are the partners that we're basically recommending that we work with. You mentioned earlier the Center for Common Ground, Reclaim Our Vote. Obviously, everybody, pretty much all the groups are doing postcarding, so you're familiar with that group, I assume. Common Cause does some various different things at different times. I've actually done some text banking with them. But good organization. League of Women Voters, we found that at the national level, they don't do a whole lot. Most of the League of Women Voters stuff is local, but it's good contact for you. Next Gen America is actually one of the groups that does the most things in terms of phone calls and text banking and a variety of different things. And it's all about youth. They really try to get the youth vote out. Power the Polls it's a new group, basically launched in 2020, focused on poll workers and getting more poll workers. UU the Vote 2022, we know that group pretty well. Well represented here. And the UUSJ Democracy Action Team were well represented as well. So we have focus on a variety of different areas within UUSJ, but one of them is our democracy group. And any of you interested in joining, just contact me. Vote Forward was a group that Teresa just mentioned. They do a lot with letters. So you can, nice thing about them is you can write the letters anytime, but you wind up sending them, I think, in October, kind of a time frame. And when we all vote, they do a fair amount of local things like voter registration as well. So those are the partners. And then our activities list. Are all things that are pretty much current. So in terms of, for example, postcarding, Center for Common Ground, Reclaim Our Vote is now writing to people in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas. And how many of you are doing postcards? Is everybody doing postcards?
No.
No? A lot of people are doing postcards.
Also Florida now.
In Florida? Okay, thank you. They're easy and people love to do them. In terms of letter writing, Vote Forward, and they're writing to Texas, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, a lot of different groups or states. And they're actually having an event on Thursday, the 15th, if you want to join a bunch of other people writing letters, including the cast of Hamilton. For UUSJ, the thing that we're writing about right now is the Electoral Count Act. So if you are interested in sending a note to your senators, encouraging them to pass this act, we would appreciate it. It's one of the very important pieces of legislation that's got bipartisan support right now. Needs to happen this Congress. I was not able to find any text banking. I don't know if anybody else has text banking that they know of. Teresa, you got your hand. What's the organization?
It's Next Gen. I was actually trying to text bank today. They have a bunch of different events within the next couple of weeks. I can send you the information that I got if you want.
Yeah, I definitely want to put that on here. Thank you. Perfect.
Okay.
Then there's a number of different groups doing phone banking. UU the Vote has a couple of phone banks on September 8th and also September 16th. Center for Common Ground. I think they had a bunch of different dates for phone banking, and Common Cause is also doing some phone banking on various dates. So those are, you can pick up different dates for those, each of those. This is one I'd never seen before. Maybe Jason is familiar with it, but it's social media. And it's for National Voter Registration Day. They're going to do social media organizing.
That's very similar to trend banking.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's very similar to trend banking, but it's going to be. It sounds really great. I don't know how Next Gen America does it, but I would be very interested to see the type of social media outreach they do and the toolkits that they put together for you all. But I think it's going to be, if anything, like a hashtag with some information about National Voter Registration Day, and then some information so that people can click and go somewhere and learn their polling place and things of that nature. It's just how I would do it. So I would imagine it's going to be similar to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It says link dropping, content creation,
yeah.
and young voters. Exactly.
Link dropping and content creation. Okay. Well, I think it's interesting anyway. It's not something I've done. Poll working through Power the Polls, and also basically contacting your local election office. Common Cause is doing some things on election protection, and also letters to the editor if you're interested in that. Next Gen is doing voter registration activities. These are phone calls nationwide. And also they do local things, as does When We All Vote. Then there are a number of events happening. One of the suggestions that I saw was using the film Suppressed and Sabotage the Fight to Vote as a kickoff film, followed by maybe a discussion of what you're doing for UU the Vote. UU the Vote as their regular office hours that happen every 2 weeks that are good for information. Jason takes those calls personally, right? Or you have a group. You also have a group that supports you, I think. Yeah.
Mary's on there with me, but yeah.
Mary has mentioned it.
Yeah.
And this activity in Michigan that you just mentioned, Jason, I think sounds very much on the ground and interesting. Next Gen also is doing an event for National Voter Registration Day, a call. So if you want to join that, you can learn all about what they're doing for voter registration.
Fred, could I jump in really quickly right there on September 20th? It hasn't been announced yet, and you guys are going to get some inside information, but there will be an event with the UUA on September 20th. It's going to be a hybrid event with myself, Nicole Presley, and 99% sure that President Susan Frederick Gray will also be joining us on Tuesday, September 20th for National Voter Registration Day. More information is going to come in the coming weeks. But just something to hold on your calendars, that there will also be a UU the Vote, UUA event on the 20th as well.
I expect there'll be more of them as we get closer.
Definitely.
Very good. So this event is actually on the 19th in terms of learning what they're doing. Then we're doing a couple of events as well on September 13th. You're all invited to visit with Andrea Miller from Reclaim Our Vote. So she'll be speaking to us, and there's a sign up for that in this list. And on the 21st, we actually are having Lee Drutman speak. So Lee's a pretty interesting guy. I read his book, or at least an article about it, Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop. So he's got an interesting perspective on what's happening in the country. And then finally, the League of Women Voters mostly does, as I said before, mostly does national level things. But you can be in contact with the local leagues and get a lot of different things happening. Linda, you've got your hand up. You there, Linda Hennigan?
Apologies, that was a mistake.
Okay. So I'll be distributing these lists, and I'm happy to take input back if there are things that you think should be on there that aren't. And hopefully they're useful to you. What I wound up doing with this activities list is I took a lot of the activities and put them on our local First Parish in Concord list of things that you can do. So it gives people a variety of things to choose from. Okay, let me stop sharing. We have a little bit of time for just sort of open comments and questions, things that you're struggling with or things you want to brag about. Emily, I know you've got something good you want to talk about. You want to do it now?
That'd be great. So, hi, everybody. I'm from Rockville, Maryland, and we've been very active in Reclaim Our Vote. I mean, we've already got like 11,000 postcards just this calendar year, and about a group of about 50 writers. So we've got a really active congregation. But one of the things we realized is that people are taking Maryland for granted. And personally, I'm from Texas and worked around the legislature in the 80s and 90s. And I saw the change go from bad to far worse in Texas. And it's all about local elections and the state legislature and the school board, and then working all the way up. And what we found is all of the national campaigns, which again, we're very active in, are not focusing on states if you're not a voter suppression state or a swing state. Nobody's playing the game. So Massachusetts, Maryland, California, etc. So we've been trying to brainstorm how to get out the vote in Maryland. And what we're doing as just, a step is to take the model of ROV postcards and send handwritten postcards to every member and friend of our congregation. And what that is really we're trying to do is a mixture of what Jason was saying, which is, I'll read you the message. So the message says, your voice is needed in Maryland's local, state, and federal elections on November 8th. Our UU values are at stake. Democracy, racial justice, reproductive rights, climate change, and so much more. And then like ROV, it tells them to vote early, where to go for information. We're saying the League of Women Voters, encourage family and friends to vote. And then also this election's important, please vote. So it's going to be signed by an individual and it'll say, our congregation, UUCR, the vote. So I just want to put that out there. People are pretty excited about it. We've got a graphic. I don't know if you can see it. One of our members is a graphic artist and has come up with a democracy, a beautiful design, which she's actually going to make available through Vistaprint. But it's a Thurgood Marshall quotation, and we're having yard signs made. So I just want to put out there that as we all work on all these other important states, we should not forget about our own home ground. And not take for granted, especially in midterms, that UU progressives are going to vote, that they're going to actually get out to vote. So just to let you know, we're happy to share this with anybody that wants to learn more about it.
Very good, Emily. Thank you. Mary.
I very strongly agree with that. I think the easiest thing for you to do, these are the low-hanging fruit, and they're very valuable, especially for your own state, where we have an important ballot question in Massachusetts, and we hope to deliver all 400 members of our congregation with their votes. And then other congregations, religious congregations of any denomination, are the kinds of people that can work as will pass the word among themselves as a group and get those votes out. So that's a very good idea.
Ken, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'm with the First Unitarian Church of Baltimore, and I've been a little bit successful here in terms of getting our congregation involved. And so we're going to have a postcard writing and letter writing campaign. And we'll do that sometime early in October. But Emily, I'd certainly like to get a hold of your postcards. That would be something we would be able to use. And UUSJ has hired a coordinator for the Maryland, DC, and Virginia group churches. And so they're going to help with some of the technical aspects of getting the materials, getting the names, and getting grants for postage stamps and so on together. So I was a little bit skeptical I'd be able to do something in my church, but it looks like now I will probably be able to have a group of people. We'll choose one day and we'll all come together in our church and do the writing of the postcards and letters.
Sounds good, Ken. Anyone else? Do you have anyone else with an issue you want to discuss? You've got 19 other smart people here if you want some input on something. Vicky, yes.
Okay, so we're doing Reclaim Our Vote. We're doing Vote Forward. There's a Supreme Court I'm from Illinois at the North Shore Unitarian Church in Deerfield. There's a local Supreme Court race in Illinois that we're doing postcards for, but I am finding that I'm losing track of the postcards. So we have tables set up and people say, oh, I'll take them home. And I guess I should be making a list because I have more papers gone with not returned postcards than I should. So suggestions besides making a list.
Linda Hennigan has this down pat. Linda, can you tell us what you do?
Sorry there. Hi. So yeah, we do those kind of parties at our church. We actually are providing packets every Sunday. So I have a clipboard and I've made a spreadsheet, and with voter letters, with that new portal, every sheet of addresses has a record number on it. So on my spreadsheet, I have all the record numbers that I have printed out, and then a spot for the name and the email address of the person who wrote it. And then I have a took home or wrote here just for my information. And then before they take it home, I just look at that number and I have them write down their name and email address so I can follow up with them later, send them a sample postcard, remind them to mail it on time. And then sometimes when we get last minute script changes, I can go back and see who do I have from Georgia. I have to let them know about that script change.
Okay, I will look at doing that because they're gone. I don't know where they are. And they're supposed to return them so that we can mail them and make sure. And with Vote Forward, I print them. And so then you have to tell them you've mailed them. And I don't want to lie. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Vicky and Linda. Anyone else with a topic you wanted to discuss and for the large group? I see no hands. Why don't we move on to their breakout groups?
Fred, would you mind if I just asked maybe a slightly different question?
Sure.
This time it really is a question instead of my going, oh, well, here's one. And that is, did you SJ start this quite a while ago, earlier than UU the Vote? And I ask that because I just want to know how it feels in some ways like two different entities, and yet some areas have tremendous overlap, if not all the overlap. Is it just that there are two groups who sprang up from slightly different bases, who each have different strengths or different histories, and so you work together to make a whole that's greater than some of the parts?
You're talking about UU the Vote and UUSJ also?
UUSJ, yeah.
Yeah, no, we are different groups. But our democracy action team focuses on democracy issues.
Sorry, it froze. I can't hear.
Our democracy action team focuses on democracy issues, obviously. And when it's this time of year, voting is one of the critical issues in our democracy. So it's a thing that we point to and try and work on. We've tried to do some things to help out UU the Vote. They're our go-to, they are the people in charge of this. So we try and do some things that are supportive without causing any difficulties and conflicts.
That is really helpful. Thank you. And I'll just put in a plug, I guess, again, for Center for Common Ground, where they completely laud your point of their issues every day, not just during an election year. And we've set up 11 democracy centers in those off years in some of particularly in the Southeast states, where sometimes there are 70% unregistered eligible voters, particularly in the Black Belt areas. And it's because there's no infrastructure there. And if by creating a physical presence and teaching people about civics and voter engagement, and then teaching them how to canvass, we're trying to make as much of it happen boots on the ground locally versus all of us calling in remotely. But I love knowing, Fred, we need to talk in future about your year-round efforts. That's really fantastic. Thank you.
Year-round, we do a lot with Congress. That's kind of why we exist. So we have meetings with various senators, staffs, and representative staffs on the issues that we care about.
Fred, one of the things our group was asking about was, could we be in touch with each other? Would people mind having Fred on
No,
BCC?
that's exactly one of the questions I wanted to ask people. Are you comfortable with sharing your names, email addresses,
Please.
locations?
Put it in the chat.
No, I've actually,
Or-
we've got a registration list.
Oh, well, there you go.
And it'd be great to know churches or locations too.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
if you have that.
when you're
Fred.
registered for this meeting, hopefully you put your church and your location. So we've got all of that.
Oh, yay.
Any other
Group
comments
or-
from the breakout groups?
Missouri and what was the other state? Oh, that I've never had involved yet. It was so great to see some states that weren't on the coast, one coast or the other.
Nebraska.
Yeah. So those are that's really good. I'll help you guys make phone calls anytime.
Any other thoughts on the breakout groups? Did they go well? Happy with it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
One of the suggestions was to take all the resources that you went over, Fred, and share them with your congregation to allow them to know what to do maybe independently. So
Okay, Fred, this is Paulette. I was gonna ask you, can I share it on UUSJ's website?
Yeah,
Okay,
we need a page, Paulette.
I'll make you a page.
All right. See, it just happens, you know?
Poof.
Yeah, I think that'd be
Because
really
you
good
got
to
us
share.
together.
Very helpful. I'll help you put the page together, Paulette.
Great.
Great, thank you.
And I'd just like to add that Timothy does a lot of postcarding, but would love to do more things also, but would love to be able to have like other churches to work with in a group where you're already phone banking, you're already text banking or something. So you could email him in the chat and say, here's my contact info. Let's talk about.
Where are you located, Tim? You're muted.
I'm in Reston, Virginia.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sorry.
So there's a very active area around there. You can.
Mhm.
I'll bet you have a state organizer, like a UU Virginia Action or something like that.
There's a group, there is an organizer for Maryland, Virginia, and DC.
So they would probably have lists of
Yeah,
congregations and congregational leaders who would be glad to get together with you.
there's a
Okay.
there's a UU event soon where to meet the organizer. Tim, you may want to go to that.
Okay. Great.
It's,
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's
I would
19
suggest, excuse me,
Go ahead.
I would suggest, Timothy, that I think it is coming up with Olivia Elder. I'm in Maryland. And that would be a really good time to meet people in the area. So it's our coordinator for the Virginia, DC, Maryland area. I think it's
Okay.
next week.
Okay, thank you.
Fred, is there a list of those state organizers somewhere?
On the UUA has a list of them, I believe, don't they?
It would be the UUA,
Hmm.
but like, is that on the website? I don't really
I
think.
believe I have seen
UUSJ
it.
does not have that.
UUA does not have that.
UUSJ does not have.
No, I
that
think
program.
UUA does.
UUA.
Okay.
I'll check.
Oh, Mary, thank you.
Any feedback, suggestions about this meeting, improving it, thoughts? Did it work?
Thank you for having it.
Yeah, I have one question. We are in a red zone with COVID right now, and I was hoping to hear some more ideas about how to engage people when they're not coming to church and when they're not physically there. I mean, you can do your after church card writing, which we're starting, but they're not going to be that many people, and they're not going to want to stay in one room. And, you know, I'm doing some off-site card writing with groups, but at some point I'd like more ideas about how to engage people when they cannot be physically present.
Do you have Zoom services on Sunday?
We do. We have a hybrid service, and I myself attend via Zoom. So yeah, we do have a hybrid.
So some of the things we've done at UUCPA are actually to have, so we have a little quote unquote coffee half hour after a Zoom.
Right. Uh-huh.
That's what we do.
And you can go into breakout rooms there, and you can also, you can say, well, anybody who wants to learn about, you know, in my case, it's Reclaim Our Vote, either phone banking or postcard, or whatever the platform is, go to breakout room number 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, you know, not be obnoxious to all the other people, but have a cluster of people who are interested in that. And we'll send a message out internally that reaches, we call it publicity, but it reaches our minister, who will make a mini announcement out of it during the service. Our weekly newsletter will have a little blurb on it. We'll have a little blurb on the website, and just any of the different way. Oh, we have some groups within our church that also get the message. One is a class dismantling white supremacy, another is fair elections, and another is the peace and justice entity. So you can, you know, and the smaller the group you send the message to, the more meaningful it can be to them too. But but actually Linda is the one who has built this list to over 100. Linda, you should weigh in on how it has grown that well.
Well, your question sounds like it's how to engage people who aren't able to get to church.
That's right. We do have the Zoom breakout rooms for coffee hour, and we have done one of those related to advocacy issues. Lately, not many people are staying for the coffee hour. I guess it's the time of year. It will pick up now that the fall is starting and people are back in the area. So, but I think that's a good idea to do a breakout room for people who want to find that kind of information. And we do have email groups. We have a public witness email group, and we send announcements to them. We have our UU updates twice a week, which goes out to everybody, and we put things in that too. So I think we just need to pick that up. And the other group is a good idea to contact some of the other groups in the church too, I think. So I do welcome any of those ideas.
Sarah, do you want to just for a sec talk about the in-person too, or do you want to just stick with the Zoom?
Oops, no, I think I've gotten a lot of good
Sorry.
ideas for the in-person kinds of things. I think
I don't know if you can hear me, but everything's frozen again.
I think that's a good tip. One of the things our church is doing is we're really trying to get people back in the building right now. It's been a struggle, and it's interesting to see if that happens.
Yeah, we've held, or I've held, because I'm not going in the church yet, so I hold things outside. The rock painting was outside, and we did learning on ranked choice voting, and we did that outside. And the other thing is coordinating with our racial justice team, and my Advocates for Women group said, hey, can you send us a notice about postcarding? Because I know we want to postcard, because I've gotten enough out there that people understand that democracy issues are racial justice, are women's justice issues. So they get that. So everybody's on board with doing democracy work. They just need to know what they need to do.
Okay.
I couldn't find the list of state organizations, but I just wrote to the person in Massachusetts who is our coordinator and asked her to send me a list, and then I will send it out to all of you.
So my email address for those of you taking notes is fredvandu, FREDVANDEU @gmail.com.
I put my address in the chat, but that was in the small group. I'll put it in this group, and I'm willing to help
I
anybody
wasn't
who
able to get
calls.
that. Fred, can you say it again, Fred? Sorry. Fred,
FRED
yeah,
VANDEU
VAN. Mhm.
@gmail.com.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. The messages that I've been sending out have been coming from me, if you're looking for. Last question for you all. Should we continue to have these meetings, and how often should they meet?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we definitely should have one after the election. I don't know about before, but I would be interested to see, to kind of do like a general debrief and see what people did and how effective it was and how they felt about it in different congregations.
And I'd be interested in at least quarterly, because I think we've got to maintain the momentum. 2024 is right around the corner.
Absolutely.
So next year is going to be our chance to really get solidified.
So anyone want to do it before the election, or is that you don't need it, basically?
Yes,
No?
we can all keep learning from each other.
Well, we can do a sort of a chat room,
A
maybe
Google
somehow.
group?
Yeah, a Google group or something like that. Just to keep in touch, keep connected.
That's a great idea.
I could set up a Google group for this group.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And the other thing you could do, of course, is to attend one of the You Use a Vote office hours if you have questions and run it by the people there.
Mhm.
That's me and Jason.
Is the list of activities, is that useful? Because I could update that on a regular basis. Is that
Yes, very much so.
okay? All right. Any other comments, thoughts? You all happy? Satisfied? Welcome, Claudia.
It's
Hi,
nice to
guys.
spend
I'm
the
sorry.
evening with you.
I just had such a hard time with my internet and everything. And, I just thought I'll just come in and, at least so you guys, we could kind of connect.
What congregation are you from?
BBUUC in Jacksonville, Florida.
Great.
Right.
We're happy to include you in the group, Claudia. So even if you're late.
Okay.
And then also, Claudia, like I said in the chat, if you want next Tuesday, I think it is we're having a meeting with Andrea Miller, and she would probably be real helpful with any questions you have.
I will try to be here. Oh my God.
We'll keep you as busy as you want to be.
Oh, I do. I do. I need all the help I can get. I'm having a training on Saturday. I think if it's not going to get rained out, to do everything, to do texting and phone banks and letters, postcards, everything. I still gotta, we did a one campaign, but I got to finish up these cards and stuff like that. So pretty enthusiastic group.
Great.
Excellent.
So Claudia, Reclaim Our Vote is working in Florida for all the above, and would love to work with you and learn from you too on that.
Okay.
I love that you're doing all three.
Well, we were just doing it too, so I want to get us to be that, I'm still trying to get that good trouble congregation.
Woohoo. Sounds as though you're doing it.
So we'll see. I'll let you guys know.
Well, thank you all for coming. It's been great meeting with you all.
It was a great meeting.
A bunch of stuff. It's a good group. So we'll try and keep it going on some sort of periodic basis. It sounds like it's useful, at least for that. And I will try and get the documents out on a regular basis for you to check out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Fred.
More
Thanks,
power to you
everybody.
for doing this.
Right.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Right.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, Paulette. Appreciate your help.
Yep, thank you so much for your patience.
Well,
Now I have to go figure out how I can get the other one fixed.
I'm glad that worked.
Yep, no problem. That was fabulous. All righty, well, have a good evening.
You were great, and your voice is stellar. You just cut through everything, and it's so positive and upbeat. We can
Oh, you
tell
have to be.
smiling.
Yep. That's what being a UU does.
Well,
Elsa, where are you from?
Even though the elections are sometimes a nightmare.
Lately, you can take the word sometimes.
I wanted to be generous.
Yeah, I heard that. Well, thank you so much again. Bye all.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
boy, Fred, for thinking to put this on. Sorry I missed the others, but this is just fantastic.
Okay.
Good night, all.
Thanks for your comments.
Night.
Bye,
Should I
everybody.
close it, Fred?
Yep.